Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to the latest episode of the Hard Compound Live. For those of you who don't know, my name is Rich, and I run and operate the Hard Compound. We're a one-stop shop for all things motorsport, whether it be from F1 to sports cars, touring cars, NASCAR, bikes, and everything in between. We cover the whole lot in the form of race reviews, race previews, throwbacks on this day, birthdays, and just any articles we want to put out, really, so we can give you all the best motorsport content out there, we like to think. We also do live interviews, as you may have noticed. We've had some fantastic guests on from across the motorsport spectrum, from a number of various different eras, from the world of touring cars. We've spoken to the likes of Tom and Jake Hill, Rick Parfitt Jr., Jade Edwards, and just during the week past, we spoke with Rob and Ricky Collard. We've also spoken with Matt Neal, Steve Soper, John Cleland, Gabriele Tarquini, Rickard Rydell, Andy Prio, Anthony Reid, Dick Bennett's the boss of West Surrey Racing. We've also spoken to a number of guests from the sports cars, single-seater IndyCar world, the likes of Mr. Terry Fullerton, the guy who Ayrton Senna said was his greatest rival in motorsport. We've spoken with the likes of Mr. Derek Warwick, David Brabham, Stefan Johansson, Mark Blundell, Perry McCarthy, many others, and we've had the honour and the privilege of speaking with Mr. Mario Andretti and Jackie Ix, all recorded on our Facebook, on our Twitter, and on our YouTube channel. So do head over to all of those and give us a follow. We're also on Instagram as well, so give us a follow on there. Search for the Hard Compound, and you'll find us. But tonight we're all about another live interview. Someone I'm very excited to speak to. He's a terrific racer in his own right, fresh off the back of a victory at the mighty Nürburgring. And he's the son of a former F1 world champion, who I'm sure you've all heard of. So lots to talk about this evening. Very much looking forward to it. So please join me in extending a very warm welcome to Mr. Freddie Hunt.
Evening, Rich. Thank you for having me here.
Freddie, good evening. Thank you very much for coming on and having a chat. It's a real pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, good to be here. Looking forward to thrilling conversation.
Well, yes, we just like to have a chat about motorsport, and and you've done a bit, and you've got a lot to talk about, and so have we. So very much looking forward to it. Before we go any further, I just want to say hello to people in the comment section, those who have already put the comments in. Michael Crease, British touring car driver. Evening, Creasy. He said James was his hero, and he's a bit like how he goes racing today. Happy days. We like to hear that. So yes, if you have any questions or comments, do put them in the comment section, and we'll try and work them into our chat this evening. And appreciate you all tuning in. But firstly, Freddie, how's things with you? Everything going okay?
Yeah, everything's going pretty good actually. This year has been best year certainly for a while. Probably so far the best motorsport year of my life. I think. I got a sign with a team at the beginning of the season, Writer Engineering, and we are racing the Michelin Le Mans Cup, and so far pretty good. The team is brand new to prototype racing. They're a well-established team in GTs and have been for 20 years or so, but we're new to this type of racing. And we arrived at Paul Ricard with no pre-season testing because the 2 test days we had at Nürburgring got snowed off, and with no data or anything like that. We had a recommended setup from DJO, which didn't work very well, and so we were completely fresh. But we've now fought our way to podiums and pole positions, and so we're quite happy.
Fantastic. No, it's good to hear. I mean, obviously, I've been following you for a number of years and the bits and pieces that you've done, and as you say, it seems like this year it's kind of clicking, which is fantastic to see. Nice to see the Hunt name back on a podium.
Yeah, very nice to be there.
Yeah, fantastic. As I said, we've got a lot to get through, really, both which we'll get to later on. Obviously, there's the whole story there that I'm sure you've spoken about many times. So apologies for repeat things. But what I'd like to do is start right at the start. obviously we all know how you're linked to motorsport. But you got in a little bit later, didn't you? It wasn't until your sort of teenage years that you got into motorsport.
Yeah, I think I was 18 or 19 for my first season. So obviously, as everyone knows, my father died when I was very young, and so I grew up around in the countryside with horses. Really, raised by my mother, and never really went to any racetracks or well, I didn't go to any racetracks since Dad died, and knew nothing about it. And when I was offered a drive I went to the Goodwood Festival Speed as an invitation, and someone said, "Would you like to drive the car?" I said, "Yes." I only had my driving license for a few weeks at the time, and that's how it all started really. And then yeah, the British Formula 4 Championship in 2007 was my first season racing.
Wow. So I mean, it was straight in from not doing it, Goodwood, and then straight into racing. Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. I mean, obviously, we're gonna. You mentioned your father there. I mean, as you said, you were very young when he passed. I mean, you were 5 or 6 years old.
Yeah.
I guess. I'm guessing any memories of him in person are kind of hazy, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, it's a long time ago now. So my memories are fading. I can still have good memories, of course, but yeah, as time goes on, memories fade, I suppose.
Yeah, unfortunately so. But obviously, yeah, there was obviously something in the blood. Horsepower of one form or another.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So yeah, 2007, you got into the Formula Ford. Excuse me. Was that with? I've got on the notes here with Joe Tandy Racing. How did that come about?
um, yeah, Joe Tandy Racing, JTR, fantastic team, and Nick Tandy, now Le Mans winner, was my first teammate, and I
Wow.
couldn't really pick a better team. They taught me an awful lot, and I had some great data to compare myself against. Nick was really quick, still is. Um, how did that come about exactly? I can't remember how we met the team. My uncle was sort of helping manage me in those days. So, obviously I didn't have a clue what I was doing, so everyone just needed help. I can't remember how or why we picked that team. I remember I did some testing with another team what was the name? I can't remember now. But anyway, we decided on JTR, and I believe it was the right choice.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, just from looking back at it, I mean, you said you had 23 races, like a full season to start with. Um, what was it like for you going from Goodwood Festival of Speed into full championship season on circuits I guess you'd never driven before, didn't have the benefit of sim racing and stuff back then, even 15 odd years ago. Was it a bit of a baptism of fire when you were out on track? Did you ever think, what have I got myself into here?
Yeah, I suppose that's probably quite a good way of putting it. Actually, baptism of fire. Um, Unfortunately, that season and the next couple of seasons were a mess. Really, I had a mental problem where I couldn't deliver under pressure.
Right.
I couldn't deliver under any competitive situation. When behind closed doors, when it was just Nick and I testing it, we got to Bedford or a track where no one was watching. I was really quick, quicker than I should have been for my level of experience. And I think knowing that and knowing that other people knew that, I put a lot of pressure on myself. And at the races, even the Friday practice beforehand, I just couldn't get my head down and couldn't concentrate on the road, and it's like sort of freeze up and forget how to drive, sort of thing.
Wow.
And then try and drive you know how you think you're supposed to drive, rather than just getting in the car and driving it.
Right. Almost overthinking it and
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
thinking of the perception of you and what you should be doing. And I mean, I'm not a racing driver. I have no idea. But I can imagine that mental side of it could, you know,
yeah. I mean, it's
handbrake.
such a mental game. I mean, I think most sports are, but racing maybe more than others, because it's so finite. One tiny mistake, and you've lost half a second, or if you're lucky,
Yeah.
or far worse. And many times I wasn't so lucky, and I'd end up crashing, spinning. Yeah, I think of those 23 races, I'd probably finish less than half of them, I would have thought.
Right.
I'd end up in the gravel or in the wall. And even when I didn't, the ones I did finish, it was a shit show, really, if I'm honest. I was 2 seconds off my own pace. And my pace was good when I was relaxed in a comfortable environment. I was never really more than half a second off Nick. Testing, and sometimes my consistency wasn't quite there. But we could see on the data, through out of 9 of the 11 corners or whatever on a circuit, I might be with him the whole lap, and then just cock it up on 1 or 2 corners. Or sometimes my theoretical times were there with him. I think once or twice even better, but putting it all together in 1 lap time wasn't there. So it was clear from the start there was raw talent, but it very much needed polishing, and unfortunately can't be polished when my mental state was like that. I mean, if only I could have done what Mick Schumacher did and race under a different name. I think it could have been very different then. But
maybe
I
that might.
knew how many people were watching, and I knew what I could do. And then when I wasn't delivering that, it was a nasty snowball effect. I'd put even more pressure on myself, and it just got worse and worse. So that's why in 2009 I stopped racing completely, because I couldn't really handle it anymore. It was becoming demoralising.
Wow, that's amazing. It's amazing on the mental side. I mean, I'm aware of a couple of drivers, not name names, on a couple of UK only series, and they're sort of struggling with the same thing, thinking, am I good enough to do this? Can I do it in a race as opposed to testing? I remember one of them even saying something like, "Oh, there's like loads of people that would like to be in my seat, but I'm the one doing it, and I'm not doing it justice," and all that kind of thing. And that must be very difficult. So, yeah, absolutely, quite a number of drivers, I'm sure, have that issue. I would, if I was good enough.
Well, I mean, one thing that's one of the sort of mental methods I use is sort of tell myself, well, very few people get to do this, Fred. So the least you can do is bloody well enjoy it.
Love that. Yeah, just go and enjoy it, and then whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
And I guess by overthinking things, you lose the enjoyment, isn't it? That's where it starts to become an issue.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When I'm relaxed and enjoying myself, I do really well. The one race I did in 2008, when my head wasn't a mess. So I was called up on the Friday. So are you available? So seats become available. Do you want to come and drive? It was in a Ginetta G20 at Mallory Park. So I said yes, love to, thank you. And off I went. Pissing wet on the Saturday, straight into qualifying. Got pole position by over a second. And then on the race, I was leading the first race. It was in the dry. And then my throttle cable snapped. The second race started from the back of the grid, so I failed to finish the first race and took the lead on the last lap and won. Now, I really enjoyed that, and so I was driving really well. The reason being was I didn't realise that the guys I was driving against were decent professionals. I assumed that they were sort of club drivers, club racers. So the competition wasn't that high. I only found out afterwards that they were seasoned drivers. They were half decent after all. But it just shows you what your the attitude you take going into a race has an effect on your driving massively.
Wow, you never really think of that at that kind of level. I guess if you'd known they were seasoned pros or something along those lines, you might have been a bit more jittery, perhaps. I mean, maybe, who knows?
Yeah.
But, wow, amazing. I've just seen a comment there from Robert. It says, "I'm sure I read somewhere that something like 75% of MIT graduates feel they suffer from imposter complex and were there by accident. I can't begin to imagine how hard it was for Mr. Hunt." Well, yeah, I mean, that basically sums it up, perhaps. Maybe it's, you think, what am I doing here?
Yeah. Daunting sometimes when you're racing against some other guys and knowing how many seasons they've got under their belt and how long they've been doing it. But then the encouraging thing is, well, I've just out qualified you, and if I'm in, let's say, P5, and I'm thinking about the bloke in P6. Yeah. But then I thought, oh shit, well, can I actually do that lap after lap? I may have been quick. I was quicker than on one lap, but can I do it every lap?
yeah, sure. Goodness me. And I have a quick look at that comment there. Yeah, okay, we'll come back to that. It's a question about F1. We'll come to that one. No problem at all. I've got a note here. You did a couple of races out in the ADAC German Formula Masters with Buchbinder Racing. I think I've read that somewhere.
Yes.
Out to Germany. I mean, again, how did that one sort of come around? Because again, it was at that time where you weren't perhaps fully confident about racing and things like that.
I'm trying to remember. I think so. That's after 2008. I remember. I think it was Peter Collins, who's an old friend of my uncle's, invited me out to wherever he lived, somewhere in Europe, Switzerland maybe, for a go in a road car with him. He wanted to assess my driving. So we went, did a track day, and he gave me some coaching and had a look at my driving. And I think he made a call and put me in touch with a team over there. They invited me out for a test. So that, I think, is that right? It was really cold. So I was I remember the test at Oschersleben. That team didn't want me, but then I got someone approached me, a German fellow called Axel Vatter, and he offered me a drive for the rest of for the following season. So we did the last round at Hockenheim in 2008, and then we did so this was the ADAC Formula Masters, which is like a Formula Renault.
Right.
And we did the season in 2009. Well, we didn't do the whole season because I pulled out about halfway or 2/3 of the way through the season because my head was just getting worse and worse. And also, I didn't fit well in these the very rigid chassis carbon fiber winged cars. I was used to a Formula Ford, which is a lot more pliant. And now I get into these things which really don't have much room for error. And once you get a little bit of a slide, then the next thing you know, it's gone. And I didn't. Where I'm used to sort of sliding the Formula Fords around, I was quite comfortable in them. And these things, they're much more precise.
And I guess that comes from them being wing cars, because this would have been the first wing car you drove, would it?
Yes, it was. Yeah. So yeah, with a head getting worse and worse, and a chassis that I wasn't used to, things didn't really get much better. And then 2/3 of the way through the season, I'd had enough because I just didn't think I was going to improve. I seemed to be getting slower and slower. The more angry I got with myself, the more disappointed I got with myself.
Sure. Which completely understand. The combination of the car and the headspace and everything else. And, it's obviously very difficult. Just again in the comments, a few questions about F1 and circuits and about your father. Which guys, sit tight. We're going to come to that. Don't worry. Stick with us. And again, moving on, you sort of had a few years where you just did some single races. Volkswagen Polo Cup, the Chevrolet Cruise Cup, both pretty cool, pretty cool saloon car series. Was that the first time you'd been in the saloon car world, as it were?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, it must have been. Chevrolet Cruise Cup was after I'd considered myself retired and actually started to drive a lot better. Axel invited me back for a few one-off drives, and I found myself actually my lap times improving during the race, which was unheard of. I thought, well, this is encouraging, and I was quite, so I didn't consider myself a professional, so there was no pressure.
Yeah,
and I was driving a lot better. However, I was in a front-wheel drive car, which I now know that. Well, so far I haven't really got my head around them. I was trying to. By the time you warmed up the rear tires, the fronts have overheated, and I've never really got the knack of them. But anyway, but the point was my head had improved, so that was good. Polo Cup again didn't get on very well with those. I did the Clio Cup, but that was after 2014. So 2013, I was living in Argentina, and it was while I was in Argentina, I went to watch a race out there, and I decided I wanted to try and race again. So I looked for sponsors out there, unsuccessfully, and then realised I ought to come back to the UK. So that's what I did at the beginning of, I think, January 2014 is when I came back to the UK, and started looking for sponsors here.
Wow. So that's a bit of a sidestep. Argentina, how did that? What, if you don't mind me asking, what took you to Argentina? That's cool. I'd love to go to Argentina.
Well, that's from the polo days. So before I started racing, I was playing professional polo. So I first went out there when I was 15, and then after that, I'd go out for the winters. So I'd spend the winters out there, and it's it's still kind of, although I haven't been there for a while now, it's still sort of a home away from home. Wow. I think I spent nearly 7 years there in total over the years. I love the place, and I've tried to move there twice. Well, that was the second time. I tried, I think, a couple of years before that, and I think I lasted about 6 months or so before I ran out of money and couldn't find a proper job. And That's come crawling back to mine.
I've been there. I didn't get as far as Argentina. I got as far as Plymouth.
Right.
Not quite as exciting. But also there's been some very good racing drivers that come out of Argentina, as well. So we've got Fangio and Reutemann and people like that. So
Yeah. Indeed.
yeah, they know their motorsport. So yeah, you've come back. Is it 2014? You said from Argentina. Excuse me. Competed in Formula Ford 1600. Was it the Walter Hayes Trophy? I mean, that's a pretty cool event at Silverstone there, and that must have been quite good to be involved in.
That was a great race weekend. That was. The Walter Hayes Trophy, for people who don't know, it's a sort of, well, it's like the Formula Ford Festival at Brands Hatch, but it's just called something different. But I think that year there was 129 entrants, or maybe over 113 different classes. My car was a 1992 car the year. Unfortunately, the engine was down with power as well, which we found out afterwards. But I finished. I really enjoyed that weekend, and that was probably one of my best weekends mentally. Really enjoying myself and feeling really at one with the car. And I think in one of the qualifying sessions, I out-qualified, well, everyone in my class, but I out-qualified several people in the class above me. It was a sort of semi-wet qualifying.
Wow.
And I found myself thinking, I think I qualified fourth, which was several places ahead of anyone in my class. So that was really good. But then it dried out for the race, and I lost my advantage. And I finished fifth. I lost one place, but I stuck with the leading pack, and I think that was the semi-final. And then the final, so finishing fifth put me, I think, 15th, starting in the final, something like that. And I unfortunately had contact in the first lap. We got about dozens of Formula 4s all trying to get through one corner at the same time, and I had one of the push rods got bent, so I was driving with a wounded car, unfortunately, for the rest of the race, and it was wet as well. But I ended up finishing fourth in class and 19th overall, which wasn't too bad. And just finishing all the races without any significant damage, with anything really nasty, was quite a step forward for me. So I was happy about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you kind of wonder what might happen without the damage, but obviously, very strong, very strong result, and probably more importantly, good for the headspace, good for the thinking that you can do it and you can mix it with them. I've got a note here, something that I spotted here. The MRF Challenge F2000 2014-15. You did 12 races. I'm going to hold my hands up. I don't know exactly what this is. Is it like a Formula 3, Formula 4 type thing?
Again, Dallara chassis, Formula Renault sort of thing. I think they got a Renault engine. I don't think there's much difference between them and a Formula Renault. Maybe a few small differences. But essentially, very similar to a Formula Renault. The MRF is a Indian tire company, so it's an Indian series. It was supposed to be 4 rounds. First 2 in the Middle East and then the second 2 in India. Unfortunately, one got cancelled. I think it was the New Delhi one. So we did Qatar and Bahrain, and then Chennai in India. 4 races per round. So we did 12 races, and that was the start of filming the Sons of Speed documentary with Matthias Lauda and myself.
Right.
Unfortunately, that didn't go very well either. My head was thrown because my mother died of cancer just, I think, it was a month or 2 before the championship started, and I wasn't a happy bunny then, and didn't get my head down at all, and made a bit of a hash of it, really.
Which is fully understandable given the circumstances. Obviously it was around that time. But again, it's an experience. It's racing, and I guess you can go racing and not put it down to that. 15. I mean, in the research, a busy year. I mean, you drove in the Pirelli World Challenge and the Maserati Trophy. You did some racing in Australia. 4 rounds of the UK PO Cup. I mean, it was quite a busy year, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was. Was that 2015? Was that
15? Yeah, I think.
Yeah, my memory. I remember the races. I can't remember exactly when they all were, but I remember going to Australia. That was a bloody good fun. They were like a sort of single-seater sort of go-kart thing with a shell on it. With I think it was a motorbike engine. Not amazingly fast, but similar to Formula Ford, like. But yeah, a lot of fun. And I wasn't too bad in those. I can't remember where I started or finished, but I think I was up in the top 10, so it wasn't too bad. These racing against these guys who are driving the whole time, and yeah, I enjoyed it. I wasn't as quick as I'd liked, as I hoped I'd been, um, but yeah, there was a lot of fun. Maserati, that was quite good. I was quite competitive in that as a GT4 car. Um, I think I got pole position, and I was leading the first race, and then my gearbox broke and left me with only fourth gear, so I limped home and finished. I can't remember, I think 7th or 10th or something.
That's pretty good. With just
Unfortunately, in the second race, I made a mistake, locked on my brakes, and clouted someone, which sent him off, and I think I got a drive-through penalty for it, which is a bit of a shame because I didn't need to make that move. Then I could have waited for the next lap and got him. I think that was for the lead, because I had the pace to win quite comfortably.
Right.
But I got hasty and made a mistake, which was silly. But I remember setting the fastest lap of the race, which was quicker than my pole position time on the very last lap when the tyres were knackered and the grass and the track was covered in grass because everyone kept on spinning off. So,
so you also, it obviously shows that you had the speed, the car had the speed, and you were giving it the beans to the end.
yeah, I was going hard right till the end. I really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed that. And they invited me for a race later on, or the following year. I can't remember at Laguna Seca, but unfortunately, it didn't. Well, the race only lasted a few seconds for me because on the start line, someone stalled, and I went straight into the back of them.
Oh, that's got to be a horrible feeling.
That was actually a very low speed crash, but it sent me to hospital because I damaged my vertebrae. I think my leg was fully extended on the brake pedal when I hit it, and the impact shunted my spine.
Oof.
Yeah.
No major damage, hopefully.
No, well, it was quite unpleasant for a few months. I had sciatica and stuff, but it was nothing too serious.
Okay, cool. Just go back to that first race where you set the fastest lap and had the penalty. Which circuit was that at? Just out of interest, just wondering.
Virginia Raceway, which is up there among my favourites. It's great.
Okay. Yeah, great circuit. Quite unknown. People don't really know about that one. But
No, I've not heard of it before either. But I got there. It might be too bumpy in a Formula car or a prototype, but in a GT car, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I spoke with the IndyCar driver at the end of last year, and he said that isn't too far from where he now lives, and he said that he loves it. He's got a little sporty little car that he goes and has a blast around it there, and he loves it. So I've got the 4 rounds of the Clio Cup. I remember this. I was at one of the rounds that you were racing in, and I had no idea you were going to be there. I didn't know. I went there and I saw your name in the program. I was like, oh my god, Freddie knows racing. Was that a fun a fun experience, or was it a bit?
It wasn't not fun. I mean, the team were great and the atmosphere was great, but I wasn't satisfied with my driving, so therefore I wasn't really enjoying it to the full extent, and I just couldn't get my head around these front-wheel drive cars, and I crashed the car at Brands Hatch in qualifying once. I remember took a good 6 or 7 laps very carefully to get the rear tyres warm without overheating the front, and then on laps 7 or 8 as it was, went for a push and got oversteer coming into, can't remember which one it is or what the name is, but the one after Graham Hill, so the fast left where you normally go up onto the GP circuit.
Surtees, I think. Yeah,
Surtees, yeah, and came off over the grass, back over the track, and smashed into the walls, which wasn't very good. And by that time, I just lost my patience with them because you don't get that problem with a rear-wheel drive car. What happened? The rear tires hadn't warmed up as much as I thought they had, and yeah.
Right. And I guess with the front-wheel drive, if you carry too much speed, you just don't turn. It just keeps going, doesn't it? Which I guess can be an issue.
The car's set up, yeah. I mean, well, asking the wrong person. I don't really know.
Yeah.
Other things.
Annoying stuff. One thing I do want to get onto 2015. You in the Euro NASCAR series. Now, I spoke with Alex Caffey last year, who now co-runs one of the teams, and I caught up with him at Brands Hatch a few weeks ago. Seriously underrated series for fans. I think people hear NASCAR and automatically go to oval, going around in circles, boring. Ricky Bobby, Talladega Nights, the film, that kind of thing. I just think it's a fantastic series. I mean, how did you find those cars to drive?
Quite a handful. I mean, they're great fun to drive, but it's nothing like I'd ever driven before. I mean, even a GT car compared to the cars I'm more used to is quite a big, fat, heavy thing. It's over a ton. It's sort of 400-500 kilos heavier than anything I've been in before. But then you get in this thing, and which is even heavier, with a whopping great big V8 in it, and sort of really raw power with 4 gears, and it's great fun, but very little visibility. And yeah, you just got to it takes quite a bit of finesse to drive them well. And I didn't get much testing. Team wasn't. I don't want to blame the team, but I don't think they were the most competitive. I heard that they hadn't rebuilt the engines and stuff, and it ended. I noticed in the notes saying why didn't it end? Because they ran out of money. They didn't pay me either. That was paid drive, and they still owe me money for it. So anyway, it ended rather sourly, unfortunately.
No, I was that was going to be the next question. How come it didn't last any longer? But that'll be why. Yeah, I just want to say hello to Thomas Parker. He says hello to Rich and Freddie. Evening, Thomas. Thank you for tuning in. But yeah, I mean, I'd personally like to see you back in Euro NASCAR. So I started following it quite closely in a couple of years. So if that ever came up, that'd be fantastic. I'd love to see that. But yeah, I'm going to plug that series because it's fantastic. I really enjoy it.
I'd love to have another go in one now. I mean, I'm a bit more. I'm a better driver now. So yeah, I'd love to give another go one day.
So I'll have a word. Yeah, see if we can get something to happen. And I want tickets. No, I'm joking. Yeah, moving again for one-off race again for Brookspeed in the 24-hour series. Porsche Cayman GT4. You won. That must have felt pretty good.
Yeah, that was a success.
Was it your first taste of endurance racing?
Sorry?
Was it your first real taste of endurance racing? Or?
I think it was. I did a couple of other shorter endurance races with Brookspeed, but I can't remember what was first. So I may have done a short race with them first. I can't remember. But yeah, that was certainly my first 24-hour race, my only 24-hour race, and we won the race, which was great.
Wow, must be great. I mean, after all that time racing and all the prep that goes into it, and not much sleep, to stand on the podium and have won.
Yeah,
must be one of the best feelings out there.
Yeah, I remember the celebration afterwards. I jumped off the car to celebrate, and I was so excited. I didn't think about my landing, and I didn't bend my knees, and I ended up fracturing my heel bone. And I was taking a month in the States after that race to see some friends and a bit of a holiday. So I did the whole of my holiday limping around the place.
But yeah, it's a good idea until gravity sort of takes over. Yeah. And whoops, never mind. Oliver Taylor, watching this awesome chat, and IndyCar, who says men can't multitask. Thank you for tuning in, Ollie. Very good. Excellent. IndyCar is on, but don't leave us, folks. This is good. Again, 2018, 2019, more sort of endurance racing, prototype racing. You got the V2V endurance series. Was that your first outing in like a prototype type?
It was, yeah. So that was a 6-hour race at Estoril, and we finished second in class and 6th overall. That was a 6-hour race, first time in LMP3. So I really enjoyed that, and that was my first taste of these cars, and I decided that's what I want to do. Really, endurance racing. I realise I'm better at endurance racing. It's better for my mind and get settled into the race easier. And excuse me, some idiots just run past the window. Oh God, what should I? I knew, yeah. So I decided that's what I want to do. And 2019, I managed to get a sponsor, Texaco, for the Road to Le Mans race in the Michelin Le Mans Cup.
Yeah.
This was a success on my part. Um, sorry.
You've been thrown off.
Yes, excuse me, guys. Choosing
It's all
syrup.
right.
Um,
No problem. I kind of wish the camera was facing the other way for a minute.
that's the race, and my head started getting better, and again I was getting quicker and quicker during the race. And I love the Le Mans circuit. A lot of drivers sort of fear it. I think it's fantastic. I mean,
Yeah.
driving in the middle of the night in the rain, 24-hour race is something different. But the circuit itself, there's nothing too scary about it for me. And I got on really well, and I proved it again this year.
Yeah.
And we had a podium. We were very quick.
Yeah. Just on the circuit there, I read somewhere while I was sort of, doing a bit of homework. You had a bit of a scare, was it, when you were there, and was it in the morning or in the evening, and the sun was right in your eyes, and you had a bit of a wobble at some point? Was that must have been lively?
That was 2019. Yes, luckily in a practice, not in a race. But you can get
Right.
the LMP3s chuck out oil from the back. I suppose probably most race cars do, and you get the windscreen covered in oil. And we were heading west down the back straight in the evening, probably 8 o'clock in the evening, with the sun right in your eyes. And luckily as a practice, I could lift off, but I really couldn't see anything. So had it been in a race, you don't really want to lift off in a race. But had there been a car parked broadside in the track, wouldn't have seen him. I don't think I would have even seen the marshals supposed to see the flags or anything. So that was quite scary, actually.
I can imagine, even if there's no sort of danger or anything wrong with the car, if there is something in the way right now, I could be toast.
Yeah. And as soon as you come out of the sun, all right, you can see. But when that's, you know what it's like when you're driving in the evening and you run out of windscreen washer, you can't see much. Yeah.
Because there's been a fair share of accidents on that straight as well. We go back to Peter Dunbreck. He went up in the air and into the trees, and Bootson had a crash in '81, and I think it might have been Alberto. No, it wasn't Alberto. I forget. There was someone else. We spoke with Manuel Pero a few weeks ago, and he said he had a similar issue with visibility, but it was with the glare of a car that spun and the lights were on, and he was thumping down the straight at 200 miles an hour, and he couldn't see a thing. And I can't imagine, even if you're the most skilled driver in the world, that's got to be pretty terrifying.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, just glad it was only practice, shall we say. Just on the subject of I've spoken with a few drivers who have done Le Mans and won, and people like David Brown. They've gone out to do the IMSA series in America, and they said as soon as they get into these kinds of cars, they fall in love with them because they're so much fun to drive. They're powerful, but they're nimble. And would you agree with that? Would you say they're one of the better kind of cars?
Le Mans prototypes.
Yeah, these prototype style cars.
Absolutely, yeah. They're like a single seater, a little bit heavier, but they are, they behave like a race car built from the ground up. In comparison to a GT car, no offense to GTs, but they're like a bus. They're fat and they're heavy and they roll a lot, and you can't really get decent feedback through the tires. So I haven't driven them much, but I tested a GTE, and it was a lovely car. It sounded great, but I couldn't feel much,
Right.
Whereas
Attached a bit.
the prototypes, you really do, like a Formula car, you really feel everything, and I find that easier.
Yeah.
But they are, they're the lighter the car with more downforce is more fun, really.
Yeah, I'm sure. Just this year this year in the last couple of years, you've been in the Ligier JSP3. I mean, it looks like a fantastic car to drive. I assume it is.
It really is, yeah. Oh, I love it. I'm looking forward to moving up to an LMP2 because I've heard that everyone said the LMP3 is actually really difficult to drive in comparison, even though the LMP2 is faster. But the LMP3 is very difficult to drive. But I'm getting on pretty well with it now, and I'm fairly quick. Not not up there yet, but there's a couple of drivers in our championship who are really quick, and they are sort of elite. They've done Le Mans, LMP1 and stuff like that. But I still think I'm fairly new to it, but I'm getting faster and faster each weekend. So
Improved in the last few weeks. Obviously, you got the podium on the 24-hour weekend. Of course, your win was it just last weekend, wasn't it? At the Nürburgring. First, congratulations on that. Fantastic. You and Mads. You guys seem pretty well suited. You guys.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I didn't know him before this season.
Right.
We get on really well. We understand one another when we're discussing the car, and also, emotionally, team needs to collaborate, I think, for want of a better word. And we all seem to fit together really well, us and this team. We understand one another, which is great. It's really important. And that weekend just came together for us. It was a last minute call there. Two other drivers pulled out. I got a call from Sabrina, our team manager, said, "Freddie, can you come and race this weekend?" So yes, of course. So Mads and I turned up, and we hadn't done any testing at the Nürburgring. I hadn't driven there since 2009 in the Formula Masters, and we're both fairly quick. We had a qualifying session each this time, just a different championship, the Prototype Cup, and we did a qualifying session each. We both qualified fourth. We won the first race and came third in the second race.
Good. Successful. I must admit, when I saw that you'd won, because I watched the first race and you'd won, selfishly, I was like, "Oh, fantastic! This is something we can talk about here." So, it was great because obviously it's a lot of hard work and there's not a lot of testing, and it kind of felt like just desserts from the outside looking in. So
credit to Maxi, our engineer. Like I said, he's brand new to these cars as well, not just Mads and I. He's never worked on these cars before, and we hadn't done any testing at Nürburgring, and so he had to completely guess the setup. We only had two practice sessions, 40-minute practice sessions, and so he guessed a bloody good setup. Then we were pretty close, so we did some damper adjustments for the next session. Unfortunately, went the wrong way, so we effectively lost that session. And then there was a 15-minute warm up before qualifying, which we tried some other changes, and they worked. So credit to Maxi. And the car still wasn't perfect. We were losing rear grip because we were putting too much through the rear tires towards the end of the race. But to get the car up, quick enough for a decent quality time, and it was pretty good. So I'm really pleased with Maxi, our engineer. He's great.
No, fantastic, brilliant. That was on the short circuit, wasn't it? The Nürburgring. It wasn't on the
it wasn't even the GP circuit. It was just the club circuit, which is a bit of a shame, but hey ho.
Yeah. Have you been around the Nordschleife?
No, not yet.
Is it on the list?
Of course. Yeah, of course it is.
Yeah, same here. Even if someone drives me around, it's fine. I just saw this. No, I'll come to that in a moment. I've read that you've done some instructing as well at Bedford Autodrome and other places. Is that something you're doing?
Let's not talk about
that. Okay, fine. We'll skip over there. Any further plans for this year and into next year? Sights set on Le Mans, the big one.
Well, yeah. So the goal is, or our ambition is to win Le Mans on or by the 2026, which is the 50th anniversary of Dad's World Championship, and that's the target. Wow. How we get there, we'll finish off the season in Michelin Le Mans Cup. Next season, we will either stay in the Michelin Le Mans Cup or we'll move to ELMS. Probably staying in LMP3, but might move up to LMP2.
Okay.
A few variables. And then hopefully in 2024 go into WEC, the World Endurance Championship.
Wow, sounds like a plan. Hopefully it will all come together. Obviously, the world's settling down a bit after COVID and all the disruption and all that. So, yeah, fingers crossed. No, that's great. I mean, you mentioned on the 50th anniversary of it coming up. It's kind of inevitable that we're going to talk about it as well. I was very conscious not to make it all about your dad because I wanted to talk to you about and your career and everything. But yeah, I mean, basically straight in. I mean, has being James Hunt's son, has it been a help to you, or a hindrance, or both? I mean,
Both, all completely. I mean, certainly got my foot in the door when I started. Um, I wouldn't have been able to get the funding that I did with no experience or walk into a top team like JCR. And then since then, a lot of people have wanted to help me because of who I am. The hindrance has been the amount of people watching me and the
yeah,
pressure I put on myself because of it. Well, not
yeah,
just because of that. I think I do that anyway. I mean, for example, like when I playing a friend at pool, it's got nothing to do with racing or anything like that. I'll play well until we go and put some money on it, then my game go to shit. So I'm generally not naturally good, in a competitive situation. Because I'm too competitive. You see what I mean? So I
yeah.
need to learn to relax, and
You almost
which
put
is
too
more
much
what
on
I'm
it.
currently doing. But the name on top of that, when I've got all these journalists and photographers pointing at me, then it doesn't help.
Yeah, and I guess having not raced before and then suddenly going racing, I guess it was you were almost not the centre of attention, but there was a lot of focus on you just because of who you are.
Yeah,
That must have been a bit of an eye opener, thinking, Why is everyone looking at me?" type thing.
yeah, exactly. And prior to that, I didn't really know um, how famous and loved my father was until I started motorsport. And
Right.
I'd never had a camera pointed at me. I'd never done an interview before or anything like that. And so, yeah, it was all a bit overwhelming. Like I said, baptism of fire, as you said at the beginning. Is
Yeah.
a good way of putting it.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you were aware that he was a world champion, as you kind of allude to. It wasn't until a bit later that you realised kind of what a big deal he was and his world championship was. I guess it wasn't until then that kind of kicked in.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I just took it. I suppose I took it for granted, growing up that dad raced in Formula One. And he was a world champion. And not like
And
such
that's
a big deal, but it wasn't a big deal to me because he was just my dad. And I never really thought about it, and I've never been involved in motorsport, so I never knew, you know, well, anything more than that. And when I
yeah,
started racing, that's when I realised, hang on, maybe it was quite a big deal.
yeah. It was, well, it's obviously the biggest thing you can do in motorsport, arguably. But
Yeah,
yeah, but
yeah,
obviously you weren't aware of that, and it was just dad, I suppose. So
yeah.
yeah, wow. I think from those of us looking in, that might sound a bit surreal, but to you, he's just dad. So yeah. Um, something I read about. I obviously I am 41, but it was it was slightly before my time. I read about Hesketh, the 308, that fantastic car, now kind of iconic car, in the international trophy race at Silverstone. I read that he basically pulled the gear knob off his hand in the race, and he still had a battle with Ronnie Peterson and stuff. I mean, that's pretty ballsy.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, those gear sticks are a little metal shank, and then with
Yeah,
a ball on the top, and the ball came off, and so just a screw from on top of this metal shank was sort of lodged into the palm of his hand. But he carried on racing.
wow, that's mad. I can't imagine the guys today doing that. Obviously, the crappy paddle gearboxes, but
Yeah,
goodness me, that's very cool. Again, I mean, there's some more things about your father. One of my, I suppose, favourite bits of footage was I think it was at Mosport in Canada where he retired and the marshal went to help him, and he basically just gave him a right hook or lashed out at him and stuff. I mean, people sort of laughed at it. He's obviously just a passionate guy about it, and in the heat of the moment, that kind of thing can happen, especially at top level.
yeah. I mean, he had a lot of adrenaline, probably more than average, and when you are in a Formula One car and with that much adrenaline, when I get out of the car, don't touch me, especially if I've just had a crash or something. So I imagine
Yeah,
the car failed or he had a crash or whatever, and he wasn't in the mood for being manhandled. And and lashed
Yeah.
out. But as you can see from the footage quite clearly, he was very, very apologetic afterwards and helped the man up, and off they went. So he was an aggressive person, but he was just quite edgy when he was just getting out of a race car.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, that's something that we should say. It's not just the lashing out, but he did put his arm around him and say, "Oh God, sorry." I mean, we'll come on to his perceived persona in a little while, but I have to speak about Hesketh because I think, even though he won the championship with McLaren, I think when everyone thinks of James Hunt, they think of McLaren and and the man called Bubbles and oysters and the caviar and all that kind of thing in the pit lane, which has now become sort of legendary and kind of embellished upon. But from what you've sort of pieced together and who you've spoken to and people like that, I mean, just what are your thoughts on that time? Because it was possibly something that people hadn't seen in F1 at the time.
Yeah, I think everyone in Formula One they were all a bit shocked when Hesketh and the entourage arrived on the scene, and not many people really took them seriously.
Yeah,
because of the caviar and the champagne and everything. But when I think pretty much straight away they were already pretty quick.
yeah.
It took them until 75 to win a race, but I think even prior to that, they were Dad was fighting up with the front guys, and everyone had to sort of think, oh, maybe these guys are quite serious.
Because there had been podiums before, but there'd obviously been F3 and F2. And again, we're going to come to the film rush.
It's funny, sure. I mean, F2. So Alexander Hesketh said, so they were okay in F3, so they moved up to F2, and then they weren't very good in F2. But he said, if I'm going to fool around at the back, well, Formula One's only going to cost me 30% more. So if I'm going to fool around at the back, I might as well do it in the real thing. So they were crap, therefore they moved up to Formula One.
So basically crap, and they thought, well, let's be crap at the big table.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love that. Again, times change. There's no way that he would just go into F2 and go, oh, you know what?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. I would love to speak to Lord Hesketh. I bet he's absolutely brilliant. Just one of life's characters. Absolutely. Yeah, but so on that, they've got that kind of reputation of the party boys, the playboys, and just partying a lot and that kind of thing. But you don't get to win an F1 Grand Prix and get podiums by not working hard. I mean, that's the side that gets lost, isn't it? I mean, they must have put in a hell of a lot of graft.
Yeah, I mean, their guests would be drinking and having fun and everything, but the team were dead serious and working very hard. So it's that simple, really. They weren't messing around. They were very serious, very hard working.
Yeah, good. Because I think this is kind of thing that people get lost in the romance of the time and all that kind of thing. And yeah, hard-working guys and guys good at what they do. I've again read somewhere. I forget where it was, but was it true that your father was in talks with Ferrari and went testing?
Yeah, which I didn't know for a while. I saw in a Ferrari book, I was flicking through a friend's house and I saw, hang on, I recognize that helmet. It wasn't the whole helmet. So I rang my Uncle Dave. I said, Dave, did Dad ever test for Ferrari? He said, yes, he did. And it was at the end of 1974, I believe. And it would have been Nicky Lauda's seat in 75. As far as I'm aware, this is what Uncle Dave said, because Uncle Dave remembers the conversation my dad was having with my grandmother about, and the reason he said no, it was on moral grounds. That Hesketh had done so well for him, and morally he can't leave Hesketh.
Wow.
We turned down
again.
Yeah.
That's the side of James Hunt that doesn't get reported. Pretty decent guy, and
I would like to say my uncle was only 11 years old during that conversation, so his memory might be perfect, and I don't know the facts. So, but I'm just recounting what my uncle told me from the best of his memory.
Wow. Well, yeah, I'm perfectly willing to get on board with that. Wow, that's amazing. Wow. That would have been cool in a Ferrari. Wow. Again, yeah, around that time, obviously, he won the race in the Hesketh, the 308. Am I right in saying you've driven that car?
Yes, I have. Yeah, I've driven that a couple of times. at the Goodwood Festival of Speed and the Goodwood Members Meet. So yeah, really great car.
Yeah,
Luckily, the members meet, I had a good few laps in it, enough time to get the tyres warm and sort of get to know. I've never had a full day's testing, I'd love to, but or any of Dad's cars. I've only ever driven them sort of demonstrations, 1 or 2 laps or behind a camera car. But no, I'd love to have a day or two really to get to know the car properly.
wow. It's one of my favourite cars of all time. I've actually got, you can't see, I've got like a window ledge here, and it's got 23 Model F1 cars, and I can just see just there is one. I've got a little Hesketh there, right there. It's just fantastic car, very cool. I'm going to grab it. Why not? While I'm here, there we are, folks. I'm not playing. There it is.
Oh, brilliant!
Excellent bit of kit. Very cool. I'll put it on the floor now. Elephant in the room. The rivalry with Niki Lauda. Obviously, it's now become even more famous through the film Rush. But obviously, Rush, it's been Hollywoodized, I suppose, hasn't it? I'm just wondering what your thoughts were on Rush, how your father was portrayed, and stuff. Because I don't know. I mean, it's a great movie, but I mean, it's not meant as a documentary. Obviously, it's meant to be extreme and whatever. But yeah, I was just wondering what you think of it.
I concur.
Okay.
In a nutshell, no. Unfortunately, really good movie. So not unhappy with it at all. People liked it, and it's not a documentary. So they changed a few details. Big deal. The bit that annoyed me the most was they got a hell of an actor to play Niki Lauda. Daniel Bruhl did an absolute masterpiece.
Superb,
and by comparison, I think Hemsworth was just an amateur. Bruhl that made him look like an amateur at least.
Right.
So Hemsworth failed to capture my father's personality, which was what people liked about him.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm again. Sorry.
Direct hit.
Yeah, and he just, but Daniel Bruhl asked Niki if he could spend a couple of weeks, some time with him so he could learn his mannerisms and everything. I knew that's good, doing your homework, proper research. In contrast, Hemsworth didn't even contact the family once. So, and it showed in his deliverance. He came out sort of cocky and arrogant, and that was what everyone loved about Dad. That he was the opposite of that. So,
yeah, it almost playing on the perceived reputation rather than actually how he was, perhaps. Which I think if I was in your shoes, I'd be a bit annoyed at, I must admit. But as I say, it was a good movie, but yeah, it just I came out of watching it thinking, well, that was entertaining, but it didn't sit right with me just from watching it. But
I'm glad you said that, because so it's not just me then thinks that.
I mean, if I'm on the same mindset as you, then that's fine. That's fine for me. But yeah, I mean, you'd have thought he might have contacted the family at least, just to try and get a bit of an insight, rather than just bottle up and be who he thought James Hunt was, maybe.
Exactly, he sort of rocked up and winged it by the looks of
it. Yeah, just went in and said, right, I've got a rough idea from what I've heard, and that's which not great. But again, something else that have you been told by others? Obviously, you've spoken to a number of people who were around at the time. Obviously, we know that your father and Niki were friends off track, and that's obviously not fully portrayed in the movie. But have you been told exactly how they were off track, or were they just good friends?
Yeah, they were very good friends. I'll try and remember exactly what Niki said to me. The beginning of the movie that shows Dad and Niki just meeting each other in Formula 3. The truth was, Dad in Formula 3, I think they even shared an apartment together for a short period of time, and they were really good friends from the beginning, and throughout, up all the way up to Formula 1. Niki beat Dad getting to Formula 1 by a season or two, I think, with BRM, and then Dad came in with Hesketh, and they remained really good friends. And it got a bit hot during '76, but they didn't lose their friendship, and they remained friends afterwards. So that was one of the details that Ron Howard, and Andrew Easton, the writer, changed in the movie, which was unnecessary. If they wanted a bit of a bit more tension between them, there was one moment in '76 where they were misquoted by the media and they were a bit upset with each other for, I think, about 48 hours until they got each other on the phone, and then they were fine. But they could have expanded on that. But anyway, they differ from the truth, which I suppose it's not a big deal, but it was unnecessary. I asked Ron Howard, why did you differ from the truth on several occasions? He said, well, the truth was too awesome, no one would believe it, which I thought was just a really shit excuse.
Cop out, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody couldn't put it in the film. Yeah. Doesn't sit right. But, I mean, it's nice that that's been sort of that, like you said that, because you just think, well, they wouldn't have made it to the end of it. If they had been like they were in the movie, they wouldn't have made it to the end of the season without knocking lumps. Which, if was the case, they'd have shown it. But and obviously, I think your father's role in the aftermath of the accident that Nicky had as well. I've read elsewhere that Nicky Lauda has said that he was a great help. Once he was back in the car and very supportive and helpful because of their friendship. Which again wasn't portrayed. Another thing I've sort of read and heard about Nicky, I forget when it was. I'm not sure exactly when it was, but your father and Nicky were in adjoining rooms in a hotel. Is it true that Nicky walked in his overalls at 7 o'clock in the morning and proclaimed he was going to win the World Championship? I've read that somewhere, and I just love that it was true, or if you know about it.
Yeah, he did. I mean, so they had adjoining rooms in this hotel, and Nicky could mathematically win the World Championship that weekend, could have done. And so at 7 o'clock in the morning, or whatever time it was, marched in fully suited up and said, "Morning, James. Today I'm going to win the World Championship," and marched out. And they both found that very funny.
Oh, I'm so glad that's true. I'm so pleased. Sorry, just going back to the movie, there was a lovely final line attributed to Nicky at the end. He said, what was it? James was it one of few that I liked and even few that I respected. He remains the only man I envy. Something like that.
I don't know whether it's true or not, but I have heard that if it is true, that's lovely. But Nicky has some fantastic words to say say to me about my father, which even on camera he wasn't scared to say them, which was really nice. Wow. Yeah. So,
I just thought it was a lovely.
The best line I had from Nicky was, which is on camera, so it's I couldn't catch your father. He was too damn quick, even in that shitty McLaren.
Yes, brilliant. I can imagine him saying that as well.
It was very touching for him to say that.
No, fantastic. Again, one final thing. Did Nicky get your father out of jail when he was in F1? Well, not jail, but out of police handcuffs or something.
Yeah, I asked him about that, and he said, and it happened. I can't remember where it was. I think it was somewhere in France in F3, and Dad got arrested for, I think, trying to steal fuel or something like that. Oh no, he broke a chain or something. Anyway, it was a minor offence, but they had him in the nick overnight, and Nicky went there and said to the police, "Look, you can't keep him in. He's got a race against me, so please let him out." Maybe it was in Austria. I don't know, because when Nicky was a bit of influence with the police, who knows?
Wow.
But Nicky did bail out of jail.
Brilliant. I just love it. All these things today. It's fantastic. I'd love to go back for a week and just be off. Right. I mean, I'm gonna keep an eye on the time, but I mean, I'm gonna tread carefully around here because I know, but there's a perceived reputation of James Hunt, and I know talking to his son probably isn't the best way to approach this, but I mean, do you ever feel uncomfortable with the way people automatically jump to that perception of him rather than the racing side?
So
because
the first one
is a fantastic driver first and foremost. He's a Formula One world champion, and that's where everyone should go to.
Sorry, the first one you have to repeat. You broke up the internet.
Sorry, in my book, James Hunt is a Formula One world champion, and that's where everyone should go first. I mean, do you ever get kind of annoyed or uncomfortable when people focus on the other side of the?
I used to, and some people are ignorant and they don't really know any better, so it doesn't really bother me anymore. But some people do focus on the on the partying and everything, and think he did party too much and a lot. But I'm not really too fussed about it anymore. I know Dad was very serious, and most people, the people that really know motorsport and followed him or around in the day, that knew he was very serious as well. So yeah, it doesn't really bother me anymore.
No, good. Because I can imagine that it just starts to grate after a while. I mean, I'm sure it will be. But obviously, there's some truth to what has been said, and something about air hostesses. And anyway, we're going to leave that to one side.
Yeah, well, for the Japanese Grand Prix, there was British Airways were using the same hotel to for their air hostesses to stay for a few days before the flight home. And so Dad got to have a constant supply of fresh air hostesses, but for the days or weeks building up to the race, which he obviously thought was great. And Dad, Tom Rubithan in one of his books said Dad's bedded with 5,000 women, which is complete and utter speculation bullshit. I'm sure Dad had quite a hell of a lot of women, but 5,000 just seems a bit unrealistic to me.
Absolutely, yeah. Even just the logistics of it, no. But I mean, if it was, fair play, but dear. No, obviously, but you got to enjoy yourself in life, and I think that's a big part of it. If you got the opportunity, then do so. Absolutely. Your father aside, just a few words on some of the drivers of that era. Obviously, we've all looked back and we've seen the likes of, I've got Mario Andretti was racing at the time, and obviously Nicky and many others. I mean, even the race in Fuji where your father won the world championship in the rain and all that. I mean, just sheer bravery and just balls, basically. Amazing people.
I mean, just driving those cars, not in a race situation, is scary because you don't have to be anywhere near the limit, and the car can break, and you can go into a wall hard, and the fuel tanks aren't nearly as secure as they are today, and the chassis is made out of aluminium. So just if you hit something hard, it folds around you, and that's without you making a mistake. So to actually do it in a race when you're on at race pace with 25, 30 other cars around you, all that fuel, all that aluminium, it's bloody lethal. So yeah, they're serious balls.
Yeah, huge respect, to anyone who drove in that era and before. I mean, I can't imagine how difficult that drive must have been at Fuji, where he secured the championship and everything in the rain. And I mean, it was a heck of a drive from everyone.
I mean, everyone says that, man. I think he made a bit of a cock up of it, actually, considering Mario Andretti comfortably won the race on one set of tyres.
Yeah.
I mean, Dad had to change tyres, and because he seemed to refuse to cool his tyres by driving through the puddles, and so when he actually came in with about 8 laps to go or 5 laps to go because he had gone through the canvas and they were flat. The two front tyres were completely flat, which they couldn't even get the jacks under the car.
Wow!
And that was I don't know why, but he was lucky to be able to come into the pits and get a fresh set on with enough laps to go to take third place. I think he came up in 5th or 6th. But on a fresh set of wets, he was really obviously mighty fast, and got third place with a lap or 2 to go, which was enough to put a 1 point ahead of Nicky.
It's enough to take it, but I mean, I guess it must have been just that tunnel vision, of like, right, go,
exactly. I suppose it must have been adrenaline. World
you've got one chance,
not much visibility in front of you, and yeah.
But
easy
to But it all worked out. Yeah. I just want to talk about. I mean, there's been a few father-son racing competitions. We've got Hunt, Lauder, Hill, Rosberg, Warner, Andretti, Fittipaldi, Brown, PK. In the States, and And the Prosts. I mean, is it, you know, when sons follow their father into racing, do you think it's a genetic thing, or is it having access to it from a young age, or
I think it's genetics, but whether genetics pass to that son, it's like breeding, horses or dogs. Sometimes you get a good one out of a certain couple, sometimes you don't. So whether it's passed to me or not, I don't know. Jacques Villeneuve looks like it passed to him. Nico Rosberg looks like it passed to him. Some others maybe not.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, I think it's passed to you. I mean, you're going racing, you're winning races. It's all good.
Yeah, maybe certainly some has at least, but how much I don't know. We'll have to find out.
Yeah, sure. That's a good time to go back to the question. Did you want to go into F1? Was that ever a goal? Follow your father's?
Initially it was, but then when I stopped racing, and when I came back to it, that's when I realised it was unlikely. It was unrealistic, so I didn't try anymore. But to begin with, I would have liked to.
Yeah, sure. I just want to touch on your father's commentary partnership with Murray Walker. Obviously, it was from my era. That was when I was watching F1, late 80s, early 90s, and everyone just loves it. Obviously, Murray was excitable and on the rev limiter and trying to be diplomatic, and your father was just calling a spade a spade. I mean, Renier knew in Monaco is one of my favourite ones. It's just the best. I mean, would you go onto the commentary route if you were offered a chance to?
No,
you're not a fan.
Well, I don't think I'll be very good at it. I've got a lot of interests outside of motorsport, and I like when I go to a track, I like to race. If I'm not racing at the track, I'm just not really that interested, to be completely frank.
No, fair enough. No, fair one. But just brilliant. Just fantastic double acts. That's like the golden era for me. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, they were great. I mean, Murray was so enthusiastic, and he was Murray Walker, and Dad was very much more to the point, also enthusiastic, but in a different way. And they did a very, very good job together. And I think a lot of people miss that, just hearing the two of them.
Yeah. I mean, I've always loved listening to them both. So fantastic. You've done your share of interviews as well. I mean, you've spoken to people like Mika Hakkinen and Jackie Stewart and people like that. Do you enjoy those interviews, and who's the best guy you've spoken to?
I did, yeah. I mean, I don't know if he was the best, but probably the most rewarding was Mika Hakkinen. When Mika sort of indirectly, but essentially said that his world championship was thanks to my father, which was wonderful. Wow. So Mika was my dad actually mentored Mika when he first started. And Mika's problem was similar to mine at the beginning. He would put a lot of pressure on himself, and he would try so hard. And Dad invited him to his house in London and took him out to clean the budgies out and stuff, working with these birds. And he basically said to him, go out and have fun, relax, enjoy yourself. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. And Mika thought about that and put it into practice and went a lot quicker after that.
Yeah. Ended up with a couple of world championships. Wow, I had no idea that he'd mentioned Mika. That's brilliant. Mika's one of those guys that I'd love to speak to. I mean, obviously he's a bit. I've got no idea how to get in touch with him, but I mean, he's one of those guys. I always really liked him. Outside
he's great. Yeah, he is.
I always liked him. Just a couple of sort of personal bits. I mean, you mentioned Lauda Junior. How's that all been? And it's all come together.
Yeah, no, great. So we started the Sons of Speed documentary back in 2014. That 2014-2015 MRF championship, and then it went quiet. I won't bore you with the details. It's not very exciting. But then we finished off the movie last year. Did 2 races at Donington together in a revolution. And now the documentary is finished and will be released soon. The trailer's out, and you may have seen it on my social media. So the documentary should be coming out this year.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to that. I will definitely be giving it a watch. Fantastic.
Cool.
And last one, the James Hunt shop. I mean, I've had a quick look online. I was going to try and get a T-shirt in time for this chat, but I've been busy. But there's some fantastic merchandise on there. I love it. Some of the classic stuff and some of the more sort of edgy, funny stuff. Yeah, T-shirt with like race hard, party hard.
Yeah,
Great one. Just really good merchandise, isn't it? So yeah, I guess you're happy with how it's all turned out.
Yeah, no, I am absolutely. Yeah, I saw some new ones they did recently. I don't know if they've actually got them on the website yet, but the ones I saw the guy at Le Mans who's got the license, and some of their new designs are really cool as well. So whether they've got them on the website yet, I'm not sure, but we'll see. But yeah,
have a look.
If you're into that stuff.
Yeah, excellent. Right, it's going to wind down. It's, been an hour and 15 minutes, but wind down with some fun questions. Just a few little fun things. What's the best car you've ever driven on a racetrack?
I mean, I don't know about the best car, but
your favourite one, I suppose.
Favourite one would probably be an LMP2 car I tested once. I mean, that's the fastest thing I've ever driven. Obviously, driving Dad's Grand Prix cars has been bloody awesome. But yeah, on the racetrack, I drove a McLaren P1 GTR, which unfortunately only one go up the hill climb in semi-wet conditions on cold, slick tyres. So I never really got to know the car, but that was pretty damn awesome.
Yeah. Wow, fantastic. Go back to a question from Simon Steele earlier. He said James Hunt was good at cross-country running, squash and tennis. What other sports does Freddie enjoy? That's a good question. I like that.
I'm not bad at cross-country. Did a half marathon in 72 minutes, which I'm told is pretty decent time. Sports, so I do like my squash. I'm not nearly as competitive as Dad was. Dad was, almost to a world-class level in his squash and his tennis. I'm not nearly there, although I do enjoy a game. Snooker, although some people not consider it a sport. And my sort of activities when I have the time is not mountaineering, but trekking. Okay. In New Zealand, Patagonia. That's where my interest lies. Just being out with nature, really.
That sounds lovely. Two questions kind of dovetailing here. Favorite circuit you've ever driven? And then we had a question from Lisa Reinhardt saying, what circuit is on your must-drive list?
Well, very luckily, my favorite circuit, I would say, is probably Le Mans, which I've done twice now. And my must-drive list would be Spa, which happens to be my next race, which is great.
Wow, so you must be looking forward to that.
Very much so, yeah. So that's 24th of September. So we've got a bit of a gap until the next race. But yeah, I can't wait to drive that. I mean, Bathurst is up there, of course, and Nürburgring near the North Side. But Spa, I don't know, it looks like my kind of circuit, so I'm cool.
Yeah, fantastic. No, I'll be keeping an eye out for that, absolutely. Is there a series that you'd like to try? I don't know, IndyCar, Aussie V8s, British touring cars, anything like that?
I really like I'm going in rallycross. I've done a testing one once. I really loved it. I would like to try it. Very much so, yeah.
Yeah, that does look fun.
Aussie V8s as well, so I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't say no to them. I wouldn't say no to many things, to be honest. Apart from front wheel drive stuff. I mean, if someone wanted me to drive in the British touring cars, for example, only because fear of not being competitive, I don't want to be at the back of the grid. If I did a bit of testing and was setting some respectable lap times, I'll give it a go. But I think so far my history with front wheel drive cars, I haven't been very good. So until I learn the knack of them, I think I'll get my ass whooped.
Fair enough. Two more questions. Your dad loved the budgerigar. Have you inherited that love of budgie?
Not the love of budgie, but the love of poultry. I don't know, you can probably hear some chicks in the background at the moment.
Hear something, yeah.
Yeah. There's some chicks I picked up yesterday. I also picked up 6 peacock yesterday. I got about 40 chickens and guinea fowl and turkeys as well.
Wow.
I like birds that not just look nice, but can give me eggs and meat at the same time.
Yeah, you can get something out of. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, someone just said yes. Do some rallycross and Aussie V8s. Yes, Oliver Turner. Full agreement.
I'm trying, Oliver.
Yeah. Last one. I mean, this could be an impossible question. I don't know. Who's the best driver you've ever raced against or with?
Probably Nick Tandy, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
I imagine so. I mean, there's two, like I said, there's two really elite guys in my championship at the moment. They might be up in Nick's league. I think they probably are. I'd still, Nick's a mate. I still back him as the best.
Yeah. Oh, good to see to make that happen. Do like a little head-to-head thing. See how we get on. Be good fun. No, wonderful. It's been an hour and 20 minutes, so I'm going to let you get on with the rest. Well, with what's left of the evening. But thank you very much. I mean, I understand you're on holiday this week as well, which is why we've had some this forward. Heading up the coast, you said, up the coast of Scotland.
Yes, yeah, that's the plan. Just for a few years up the west coast of Scotland. So yeah,
Lovely.
hopefully the weather clears up a bit. Cause it's not very nice at the moment up north.
Oh, is it not? Okay. Yeah. Beautiful part of the world, though. Very, very nice. So I do hope you have a fantastic time, and thank you very, very, very much for coming and having a chat. It's been fantastic talking to you. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you, Rich.
Great stuff, and thank you everyone for tuning in. And yeah, we'll be back soon.
Cool.
Thanks, Freddie. Really appreciate it. Good night, guys.
Pleasure. Good night, guys.